last time I discussed Hamzat, I said he's an enigma. But the great thing is, we don't have to wait long to have our questions answered. It's like someone sat in a remote control and we get to see the whole thing unfold in fast forward. Shortly after I made that video, the most intriguing show in MMA was put in pause. Hamzat booked a huge step up and a massive opportunity to fast-track his way to a title shot against Leon Edwards. But that fight never materialized. It initially fell through when both Hamzat and Leon got COVID. It was rescheduled for January, but Hamzat had to pull out again. The fight was rescheduled a final time, and over 2 months after contracting the virus, Hamzat had to pull out once more. As it turned out, the risk-seeking nature that made Hamzat so interesting in the cage was a total hazard in terms of recuperation, and he admitted he had sabotaged his own recovery by rushing his return to the sport.
When was the first time you coughed up blood?
It was I did wrong there because they told me like, don't spar. I did 3 rounds, then I feel bad, like in my chest, like.
So Hamzat jumped the gun and fucked himself. He was hospitalized multiple times, and according to his coach, at least on one occasion, Hamzat thought he was on the way out.
We have been in and out of hospital so many times now. He thought he was going to die.
3 months after announcing he tested positive, Hamzat admitted that retirement was a possibility, posting, "I think I'm done." There were numerous reasons for Hamzat's retirement. Firstly, he just couldn't recover. His return to training had aggravated his condition, and so MMA simply became a source of frustration.
Это были эмоциональные слова просто, потому что 2 месяца болел, не выздоравливался, долго болел, и поэтому я уже стресс был из-за того, что не могу драться, не могу тренироваться, поэтому такие слова были, там не было такого.
That's one of the most difficult things with debilitating health issues that persist. They can rob you of everything in your life. It takes the wind out of your sails, whatever goals you might have had can seem impossible, and you can find yourself living like a much older person. So a psychological component enters into the physical illness, and the longer it persists, the more it can really crush your morale. The worst part of the whole thing is that it's often impossible to give a reasonable time frame for recovery, and it's that not knowing that really tortures you. 2 more months, 10 more months, am I ever gonna be the same again? It's a fucking nightmare. For Hamzat, it wasn't even that long. It was a matter of months. But considering that he had been on the cusp of superstar status and of achieving things he'd been dreaming of for years, those 3 or 4 months must have felt like 3 or 4 years.
4 years I did train MMA, like I didn't miss maybe 1-2 days in 4 years. Like this is things I like to do and love to do. That's why it was hard.
A happy person wants 10,000 things. A sick person just wants one thing.
Exactly. Illness narrows your hopes down to a single thing, and that's getting your fucking health back. So it's not hard to see how fighting went right out the fucking window while he was battling that.
This was hard for me. You can't think about fight. 1 month sick, I still like 2 months sick. Like I have to finish with this.
But it wasn't just a matter of frustration. As the illness became more serious, Hamzat's motivation for considering retirement was the same thing that had been a major factor motivating him to fight in the first place. Hamzat constantly speaks about his family, specifically his mother. I discussed in a previous video the climate and historical setting of his childhood, and the impact that may have had on his attitude towards violence. But recently, he's fleshed out some of those details, and you get a sense of the strength of the familial bonds formed in those types of settings, where people were on the edge of ruin and had to really rely on those around them. They depended on the sacrifices of others and on the good nature of their community. He described how the whole village banded together in the manner you often hear of war-torn people.
I was young. Yeah, it was hard. We didn't have food. We used to go to neighbors to ask food, The other day maybe they come ask some food also. All village was like family, because after war everybody stayed together still I love my village, everybody family, everybody knows me, they're proud of me, when I was there last time.
Hamzat's family eventually took asylum in Sweden. One of the things Hamzat found both difficult and motivating was comparing the relative poverty of his situation with the wealth in parts of the city, and then trying to reconcile that comparison with the life he felt his mother deserved for the sacrifices she had made. And I mean, just look at Hamzat's face when he's talking about this.
Going home, like not so nice apartment. We live like big family, mom and my brother, sister. We live in some apartment. Every morning before the work, I go out and running, like see the big house, nice apartments, and was feeling bad for my mother. That time was hard. Always was thinking how I'm gonna get this money and do something for my mother. Is she gonna be happy,
Out of necessity and a lack of opportunities in Chechnya, his mother had no choice but to raise the 6 children alone in the devastation of a shattered nation.
I'm gonna do everything she stay happy because she did so many things. But my father was working in Russia somewhere 7 years, something like that. My mother take care of us, 6 kids, but out money. And
so not only does Hamzat have a great deal of gratitude, but the whole thing shaped his view on the fortitude and strength of women in general.
Sometimes she didn't eat food just because she wanna give to us that, So I think woman is the strongest people in this world. I have a big respect for women.
It's great to have Hamzat giving us that insight, but I have a feeling that as his career progresses, he will tire of going into depth on that subject, in the same way Khabib became tired of answering questions about his father. I might be wrong, but I think it'll eventually wear him out. But Hamzat doesn't just speak about his mother. He's trying to elevate the lives of all the important people around him. They were with him through one of humanity's ultimate lows, and he wants to take them along to experience some of life's highs.
To help somebody, I do this not only for me. I do it for everybody I can help. I don't want to be like, Mayweather, like McGregor, like show my money, show my course, like something like that. I want to help to people.
I will give to the people who needs the money. Make money and give to people and give help to everyone. My family, my brother has 4 kids, sisters, brothers. I help them, how to help everyone. I'm rich with my heart.
So when Hamzat, after months of battling the virus, realized a hastened return to the sport had worsened his health and brought him to the brink of death, he felt the most meaningful way to achieve his goal of bettering the lives of those around him was not to keep fighting. It was to give that up and instead fight just to stay alive.
I never scared about my life. I scared about my life. It's like what gonna do my mom, my family, after me. That's why I was scared about that. That's why I said like I'm maybe finished with sport. Like if you have mom, you maybe understand me. Like everybody loves his mom, his family. Is more important than everything in this world.
So at the time of his retirement post, Hamzat was frustrated. He felt the weight of responsibility, and consequently his morale appeared to have sunk to a demoralizing low. But he eventually left the US to recover in Chechnya. After about 3 weeks, he was showing good signs of improvement. The doctors also decided to remove a cyst from his throat. So, in terms of health, sometimes when it rains, it really pours. Before long, Hamzat bounced back and was once again raring to get in a cage.
Surprise, surprise, Wolf is back.
One story emerged that seemed to undermine Hamzat's portrayal of himself, and that was when Luke Rockhold revealed he'd been offered and accepted a fight only for Hamzat to turn it down. Now, I think most people would give Hamzat a break here. He was coming back from a horrible bout with a respiratory condition, so a huge step up in competition against an enormous middleweight who was a former champion clearly wasn't ideal. But some people weren't that sympathetic. All Hamzat had said over the last year was anyone, any place, any weight, any species, any inanimate objects, any abstract ideas, the fucking Candyman, any fucking thing at all. Anything at all, you got it. He was talking one of the biggest games ever, and so when he turned down the Luke fight, a lot of people were like, oh, okay, I see. Anyone except Luke Rockhold, okay. It's a harsh critique, all things considered, but according to Hamzat, it wasn't even accurate. He claims he was totally down for the Rockhold fight.
When they asked me about this guy, when I said, Coach, I can knock this guy out, I said, Coach and manager, if they don't want this fight, I listen to these guys. But I accept it all.
According to an ESPN article on the subject, because Hamzat had compromised his health by failing to heed the advice of professionals and his coaches, upon his return to training, his coaches were able to insist that he take their advice moving forward, and they had a vision for Hamzat.
We want to choose a weight and go for the belt in that way. Jumping up, down, left, right, don't have any problem like fighting anyone. But it has to be in one weight and going for the belt.
He's done amazingly well taking fights on short notice and at various weight classes. But as he moves on to better opposition, that carefree, risk-loving attitude could easily become a liability at a certain level. So I think the idea of Hamzat getting reined in a little, probably a good thing. And Hamzat seems happy enough with the goal.
We're not being responsible as like coaches and like managers to do that. Like, you have to have a goal and a mission and stick to that.
I give my word to my coach. We'll focus on 170 now and take this belt. And after that, we'll jump up.
The announcement was eventually made that his return would be against Li Jingliang, who was a disappointing choice from a promotional standpoint. We went from Maya to Leon Edwards to a potential fight with Rocco. And now here we're talking about Li Jingliang. 3 days before the fight, Hamzat didn't even know his opponent's name. If he wasn't Chechen, he might have gotten trouble for the way he tried to throw Asian-sounding syllables together in order to reconstruct Li's name off the cuff. There's a lot of ings and angs. I think there's a jingling in there. Middle name probably Jackie Chan. Throw in a Li, toss all those sounds in a blender, and voila, one Li Jingliang.
I didn't know this guy was in the UFC also. And when I heard his first name, I'm like, what? Li Jingliang? I can't speak his name as well. Li Jingliang, yeah, something like that.
And that was days before the fight. He didn't even know the guy's fucking name. But Li was a great opponent. 4 Performance of the Nights, 2 Fight of the Nights, just outside the top 10. Dynamite in his hands, and coming off the biggest win of his career with his first-round knockout of Santiago Ponzinibbio. He wasn't well known, but coming back he was a perfect step up for Hamzat. Unfortunately for him, the dynamite in Li's hands was a moot point. He may as well have had potpourri in his hands. He may as well have been throwing jelly donuts. It almost wouldn't have made a difference if Li had no hands, or arms or legs. That's how one-sided the fight was. Hamzat picked Li up and walked him over to Dana. Apparently, he just wanted to inform his promoter that he's the king and open a dialogue with regards to potential candidates for his next fight. He thought it was an opportune moment to get that ball rolling.
He's talking to Dana! Oh my goodness!
The beating was almost mercifully curtailed, and he promptly left Li unconscious on the mat. It was a shocking addition to one of the most shocking opening streaks we've ever seen in the UFC. The step up in competition, the illness, the layoff, all those factors made no difference whatsoever. Another flawless fucking victory, and again absorbing 0 strikes in the process. I mean, what the fuck is going on here?
How about he's got more wins in the UFC than he's been hit in the UFC?
But some people still have their reservations. We haven't seen his cardio tested. Based on what I've heard about his training, I would bet my life he's got at least 3 rounds in the tank. We also don't know if he's a front runner, in the manner of a Vitor Belfort, as Michael Bisping pointed out.
You know, it's easy to be the hammer, you know, but sometimes in a fight, you're going to be able to be the nail. You're going to be able to get the shit kicked out of you and bounce back. You know, is he going to be able to go through a round like that, dust it off, and then come back mentally strong the next round? Not everybody can. They're bullies in there. They're good when they're able to bully people, but when they can't bully them, they wilt. Vitor Belfort, classic example. Great when he's punishing people. You put a bit of pressure on him, he'll fold like a little lawn chair.
Now, I would again bet my life that mental toughness is not going to be Hamzat's undoing. It just would not gel with how I view this guy. But we don't know, and we can't just give him the benefit of the doubt. We have to see those attributes tested inside the octagon. So there is still obviously a speculative element to Hamzat's potential. But if you look at it from another angle, Usman is a champion in that division, and he's also widely regarded as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, which I totally agree with. But you have to wonder, if you stripped him of his belt, and you took him off the pound-for-pound and welterweight rankings, and you say, okay, Kamaru, you have to work your way back to the belt from an unranked status. You have to fight your way back up the rankings. Now, I'm not saying he wouldn't look as impressive, but how could he possibly look any more impressive than how Hamzat has looked so far? This just looks exactly how you'd expect the best fighter in the world would look if for some reason he had to retrace his steps up the UFC's ladder. It is that fucking impressive. He is a hot knife through butter to an absurd degree. And so the idea that that might actually be the case, that he might be the final product right out the box, is once again the most interesting question in the sport. He's come through one of the tougher years for everyone, and he's got the scars to prove it. It destroyed his momentum, and it seems it brought him to the brink both physically and psychologically. But with just 3 minutes of cage time, he's re-established himself as the most compelling story in MMA. Li Jingliang is a lifelong martial artist, just outside the top 10. And that fight looked like someone painted a face on a fucking grappling dummy. After 4 fights like that, Hamzat has captured the fans' imagination in a manner that very few fighters ever do. It is early days, but this guy's potential is so fucking exciting. At this point, Hamzat just looks unstoppable.